today is actually southern pea and not squash. Let's go ahead and shift gears here for a minute. Just as a reminder, we did do a lunchbox on squash a couple weeks ago, or a few weeks back now, and that should be on the archive of our lunchbox, which is at eorganic.info/lunchbox. So you can get those anytime as well. So definitely take a look back at that. And I'm going to hand it over to you, Dr. Curculio.
Okay, just a second.
No problem.
Can I see? No.
What? And while you're getting that pulled up, is now Sam? I think Sam was on. Thomas, we hear it. There you go. I think you just got I think you muted your microphone. Sam from Indigo Run Farms is on the line with us, and he did have specific southern pea question. Do you want to go ahead and hear that question?
Yeah, I want to hear that question.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Sam, we're going to kick it off with you.
Okay, it's a basic question. Last year, I was not happy with what unfolded, and I thought I was doing things as right as I could. I started a little early, and I planted peas about 2 to 3 seeds per cell, but then I planted them like 6 inches apart. And in my case, I used 4-foot centered rows or beds, and I don't know whether it was because of the extreme heat or what, but I didn't get any production. And then finally at the end, I did get little, but it was just difficult. And then the weeds were very hard to deal with by that time too. So, but that was not just this project. It was happening with beans and other things, all in that legume family. And I said, wait a minute. It just caused me to do a double take, say, I need to revisit what I'm doing, because in the past, I know we've grown peas here on the farm with, seemingly fairly easy, but they weren't organic, and they were direct seeded with a seeder. So it didn't, but the bottom line was they did not produce. It was like they didn't want to make peas.
Okay.
And same way with the beans.
Okay. Now, there is a question I would ask, and maybe Dr. Pomblik will come in at this point. Did you do with legumes? You said you had some problem with things in the legume family. I know the nitrogen fixing and all of that, but did you do a test before you planted the peas?
Yes, I did, and it was not a heavy application of nitrogen, because I think sometimes you can overdo the nitrogen. It makes it tend to want to make vegetative instead of flowering. But it was what I thought was the about right level. 30 pounds of nitrogen per acre, or somewhere along in there.
What specific varieties did you plant? Before I even get there, you didn't have any plant health issues that you could tell, right? The plants were not looking.
No, the plants look good. Look good. They were the pink eye pea and the Dixie Lee pea and Mississippi silver.
Okay. This is Pomblik. I want to jump in. You say you did the soil test. What was the soil pH?
Oh no, that's I do not remember exactly, but I was going by a soil test from like 2 years previous, so that can be a factor. But 2 years ago, the soil was around here was like 5.6 to 5.9. That's about where we want the soil pH here. If you go over 6, very much.
Yeah, well, you know that once you have decomposition taking place in your soil, your pH will tend to go down because of the nitrate production. So the pH goes down over time. So 5 point something, and for legumes is probably too low. Legume they will like calcium, and that means didn't your soil test made any recommendation about liming?
No, not we were good at the time, but I did not get a soil test done in front of that time. So that's a good point. That's very good. So
yeah,
really,
you need to get,
on these legumes, they really need a pH closer to 6. You know,
a little bit over that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I've always understood that sometimes in our area, if you start getting the pH too high, it ties up other things. So they generally
it depends on how high. But legumes tend to like calcium, and the way calcium is going to be there if your pH is a little bit higher than the 5.9, you know, that you're talking about. So, and then I think that Dr. Kwal could just ask you also about the biomass. Did you get a lot of biomass?
I thought enough. I thought it was pretty good. I've seen more. I've seen better. Yes, but
okay, because the biomass. Okay, legumes. You need, I think, 30 pounds per acre. That's not bad, but again, it depends on how much you have already before you are adding that.
Right.
So the legumes, if you add too much nitrogen for them, they will tend to produce more biomass, and they will not fruit to to get your pods for you. So you need to pay attention to that. We would like to take a look at the soil pH before we start talking about the entomological aspect. What maybe, if there is any. We know that it's tough to grow legumes. At least in Tuskegee here, we tried to grow them years ago without paying much attention to insect problems, and we had a lot of insects there. But now that we are testing some of these organic pesticides, we should keep it under control. So let's look at the soil pH. If you could, please send us your soil test of 2 years ago. And did you do another soil test this year before you planted again?
No, I haven't. But I've got these plants in trays, so they're not in the permanent bed. So
okay. How old are they now?
They were sowed early this week. So they're very small.
Very small. So like a week.
Yes, and I think if the lab turns quickly, I might be able to get the results back before I do it, and then I'd have to till in any line that I put in pretty good, but that's done.
Exactly. So please take the soil test to your lab. Let them run the soil test for you. Send us the last year result plus this year's result, and then we'll see.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Okay, Dr. Kwako, back to you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm sorry to ask this question again. Do I share my screen by clicking on this green thing share? I know I've done this a few times. I should not be asking.
Yeah, you just go to where it says share on there, and then you can share something else that you have open. So like if you have a PowerPoint, open that up, and then you can
okay, I see that.
There you go.
All right.
All right.
I have a question. This is Robert Jones from Jones Farm.
Okay.
This pertains to the peas. I planted peas on April the 23rd, Queen Annie and the Mississippi Sybil. I had poor germination, probably about 40% germination. Okay. it was early enough that I decided to replant the whole plot. I replanted the whole plot on May the 15th in a new spot. Okay, my new spot, it had germinated about 95 to 100%. So in terms of data, should I just forget the first plot, or should I maintain any type of information about the first plot?
I didn't catch the final part. Your question is, do you need to maintain information about the first crop?
Right, because like I didn't destroy the first plot. I just replanted the entire plot about 20 feet away.
Okay, about 20 feet away.
Right, from the plot that I had a problem with soil germination. So my question is like, should I maintain data on both plots or just forget about the first plot?
Okay, I'll answer that question from a pest management perspective. Normally, when we do what we call, so that may not have been your plan, but you have ended up doing what we call staggered planting. So you planted one crop and then you have planted another crop very close to it, but they are different ages. What's going to happen if you have to pay close attention if you are going to be maintaining the second one, do not ignore the first one, because what's going to happen is that a number of the insect pests, they go to the first crop because that's the one that's going to reach the level of maturity that is very attractive to them initially. Immediately they grow past the stage that where they are attractive, they just move to the younger plants, and conveniently is just 20 feet away from the first one. So even though the second one is now your main focus, your problems can stem from the one you planted first. So if all the management stuff that you are doing for the new crop, you have to pay close attention to the one that didn't have the good germination, because pest problems there are more likely to follow you to the new crop. Have I answered your question?
No. My question is like, should I destroy the first plot?
Well, let me jump in. When it comes to soils, we're going back to soil test, because soil test is the key to growing anything. So did you take the soil test there too before?
Yeah.
And what was the pH there?
5.8.
Okay, and you planted, you said peas?
Yes, but like I planted them early. And I had several days of cool weather, and that may have been the problem due to the poor germination. But anyway, when I did the second crop, like they germinated normal about 90 to 95%. So I don't have any problem with the second plot.
Right. So I mean, you see, this kind of problem, you have to eliminate one after another one. It could be the weather. You know, you're talking about the temperature, for instance.
Yeah.
The best way you could test yourself is just to replant again, you know, few rows on the old place.
Okay.
Now that it's warm, then it tells you right away, okay, that was the weather. If it is not the weather, then, you know, you're going to look for something else, because apparently you say just 10 feet away from the previous planting area. So, you know, it's unlikely that there is a soil issue probably.
Dr. K, since he's established a new plot though for the grower data log and for this project, he's wondering, he doesn't need to keep the records on the first plot that he built, right? He can go ahead and go with this replanting the area that he replanted.
Right. Just go ahead and
Yeah.
give the information about the new planting that you have done.
Right. So does that answer your question?
Yes, and thanks so much. Yes.
Okay. Great. Sounds good. Okay, Dr. Corcu, go ahead.
Okay. Now with Southern Peas, we have a number of insect pests that we deal with. I have a list of some of them here, but this is by no means an exhaustive list, right? Sometimes with insects, we try to do training programs, get people ready for pests, and then a pest does show up and it's not on the list of pests that we are prepared against. So with pest management, sometimes we have this list, but it may not be what you're dealing with. But I need to have a list all the same so I can go through some of the. We have aphids, which seem to be everywhere, right? They eat almost everything. We have thrips, we have bean leaf beetles, which is a problem. Somebody had a problem with bean leaf beetles recently in our team. We have corn earworms, we have loopers. We have European corn borer, cowpea, Curculio, which this is really bad news that can wipe you out. And even before I get to it, even conventional growers have difficulties dealing with cowpea, Curculio. So as much as possible for our organic growers, if you know you have cowpea, Curculio problems at a location, my advice is to rotate away from that plot for maybe 3, 4, 5 years. Plant something else that cowpea, Curculio doesn't feed on. Because once you have a problem at a location, most of the pesticides that we have, even the conventional pesticides, they don't do such a great job. There was a proposal to allow the registration of a pesticide that could be applied to the soil in order to solve this problem. The last I heard, the authorization had not been given and it had not been registered for use on soil. That's even for conventional, not to talk about organic, where we don't really have anything that can really deal with it most effectively. So preventive measures are going to be key for cowpea, Curculio, and I know I'll get to it. Then we have Stinkbugs, we have leaf-footed bugs, and there are pictures of some of these. So when we start talking about them, we will over some. Now, as we did previously, you can stop me at any time and ask a question. I have a PowerPoint that I want to talk about, but I'd rather talk about what you need to hear. So if I'm talking about something and you want to stop me and ask me a question, I'm happy to stop and then have that discussion. I have talked about this before in some of the other presentations. Anytime I talk about aphids, I talk about this relationship. Sometimes you see a lot of ants. The issue with aphids that they like to be on the underside of the leaves. I keep repeating this because a lot of the times when we are monitoring our fields, we get to the point where we think everything is fine and things are not fine because the problem is on the underside of the leaves, the lower surface of the leaves. So sometimes you see that because you see ants hovering around all over the place. It is because of the honeydew that the aphids release. So I don't want to spend too much time on this because I know we've discussed it previously. So sometimes the way you tell, you see ants coming. But these ladybugs are good for you because, of course, they feed on the aphids. And because of that, these ants try to fight off the ladybugs because they know the ladybugs feed on the aphids, which produce the honeydew that they want. So I know I talk about this for most of the crops because, first of all, because aphids eat almost everything. So we have to always address that. Now, and today I'm really going to talk about cowpea, Curculio. And one of the few, because this cowpea, Curculio is a major problem, for some reason, a number of researchers have tried to conduct research on it, and there were a number of failures. They didn't as much success as they would want. So for some reason, a number of researchers have left this pest alone. It's like they've given up on it. There are a few people still doing research on that, including one Dr. David Riley in University of Georgia, who has done quite a bit of work, and it is a very difficult insect to deal with. So like I said, this is what it looks like. And normally on the pod, you see a raised spot like a scar on the pod, like you see here. And it's basically a weevil. It has the snout kind of mouth. You see it's a beetle. When I say weevil, these are just beetles that have that kind of snout like you see here. And this is what they do. And then you see that puncture, and then it forms a scar. So even if you don't see the cowpea curculio, and then you are looking at your pods and you see those things, that's indicative of cowpea curculio issues. And like I said, one of the products that are used for conventional growers is pyrethroids. Well, of course, that's not an option for organic growers. For organic growers, you use the natural version of the pyrethroid, which is the pyrethrum. An example is Pyganic and a lot of this other stuff. But we will get to some of the reasons why it is difficult to control. I'll come back to that. We have thrips. Let me just show you the pictures of some of these insects that I've talked about. I promise I'll come back to the cowpea curculio. This is what thrips look like. One of the things they do is that they, in order to recognize them, you know, they have wings, but the wings have, it's just like an appendage with long hairs on it. It's not like the typical wing that you see. It's just like a limb with long hairs that form the wing. Issue with them is through their feeding activities, they cause a lot of problems. They have what we call rasping, sucking mouthparts. So what they do is that they sort of scratch the surface of the plant, and then when it begins to ooze fluids, then they suck it. Well, they transmit diseases, all kinds of disease issues that are transmitted through these activities. So also a problem. We have the Mexican bean beetle. Not only the Mexican bean leaf, we have other bean beetles that cause all kinds of problems. So another thing I like to do is that when you know a pest, you think you know the pest, and somebody is asking you, how serious is the problem? I only saw a few of these Mexican bean beetle. Sometimes some people would look at them and say, oh, this is just a regular ladybug, so that's great for me. So identification-wise, you need to know what features are looking at. If you look at an insect, you are not too sure what it is, you can let us have a look at it, take a great picture. We will take a look at it and tell you. And sometimes we may need size information. We want to you put a coin or something next to it so that we have an idea about what kind of stuff we do. And then we'll help you with that identification. The reason I said that is that you have this, and maybe I'm asking you over the phone, how serious is the problem? You say, well, I saw 2 of these, and you are thinking we are under the impression that it's not a serious problem. But if you had linked this individual to these other life stages, and there are lots of these and lots of these, we know that even though you don't have many of these, you have a potential problem that is going, they will soon develop to that. So that will help us in assessing the severity of the infestation better if you understand the other life stages. So you may only be seeing a few of these, but lots of that, you know, is still a major problem. So like I said, I promise I will get back to the cowpea curculio. This is what is going to happen. You open the pod, you see what's going on here. This is not marketable. See, you see the larval form, you see the adult form. One thing you need to know, this photo, like I said, Dr. David Riley does quite a bit of, he's one of the few people who are stuck with this cowpea curculio research. Like I said, there have been many failures. And so people just left this cowpea curculio thing alone. But one of the things about this is that the infestation starts in the field. So there are certain problems. You have cowpea curculio problems in the field, and you poor management of the cowpea curculio, and you harvest, your problems are not over. Because a number of the times, other life stages are inside the pod and things are going on. So there's post-harvest loss as well. So apart from what you lose in the field, the problem continues into storage. So, and there are fields that have recorded 80, 90% loss as a result of this cowpea killing. So what I'm saying is that I've met a number of farmers, they had no infestation of cowpea kilo 1 year, and then they are asking me whether they can grow cowpea or southern peas at the same location. Usually, the idea is to rotate away from that crop. If you are a conventional grower and you insist on planting there, it's no longer a question as to whether you are going to have to spray. You are going to spray, how often and when. It's no longer a question of are you going to spray. If you have cowpea at the location and you want to keep planting plants in their host range for them to fester and multiply, that's not going to be helpful in the final analysis. So rotating away from the crop is going to be key.
How much pressure would you say you need on your sprayer, on the spray nozzle? You need to be able to turn those leaves. Can you spray overhead, or are you going to have to spray with nozzles flipping leaves over?
I will, if you ask for my recommendation, unless you have those fine under high pressure where the droplet size goes extremely low, so it goes to a lot of places, I would not want to spray from overhead unless the pressure is high, so it can go a lot of places. Because if you are spraying using a regular sprayer and you don't have a large field, I want both the leaves, the underside of the leaves, and the base of the plants to be targeted. The area around the base of the plant needs to be targeted, because sometimes the adults, they go leaf litter around the base of the plant, they hide under there during the hot part of the day, and that becomes a serious issue. So yes, if you are going to spray for this, the higher the pressure, the more likely the spray is going to be able to reach typically inaccessible areas. But overhead spraying, unless you have an extremely large field, I think that may not get to them like you would want it to get to them.
Okay.
Okay. Not this. Now, there are other pests that we have. How many of you have heard of cowpea weevil? Anybody who has had issues with cowpea weevil?
Hold on 1 second. No, I didn't.
Somebody needs to put their phone. Okay. The cowpea weevil is also another problem that we have for southern peas. And sometimes when you open the pod, or if you are doing dry peas or whatever, what you see is you see these whitish spots on the peas. And well, depending upon who is looking at them, sometimes, I don't know, but they are eggs of the cowpea curculio. And if you have this and you put it in a glass jar, I don't care where you put it, even if you just have these white spots without the actual weevils, after a short time, you are going to see these weevils emerging from the glass. I mean, you find them with the peas in the glass jars. This also infests crops in the field. So field crop management of this southern peas, if it's not properly done, what I'm trying to stress is that you bring problems into storage and it affects marketing. Of course, when people see peas with these whitish spots on that, that's going to be difficult to market anyway. So you have to deal with the problems in the field before you get into storage facilities or rooms. This is a presentation that Dr. Riley gave to a group of our farmers some time ago. And I'm going to go back to some of the issues with cowpea curculio. And I'm focusing on that because, yes, we have things like Stinkbugs, We have things like leaf-footed bugs, which are also problems for southern peas. There are a number of trap crops that have been used to trap these pests that I'll be talking about shortly. But when it comes to cowpea curculio, I want you to get the picture. So I'm giving this pest number 1 status. You don't want to have issues with cowpea curculio.
Yeah. How bad are stink bugs? Because I know I've got a population of stink bugs in the entire area here, worse than usual.
They are, how bad are stink bugs for southern peas? Really bad. And leaf-footed bugs. You have leaf-footed bugs too? Let me show you a picture. Let me see. Remind me to show you. I'll remember. So to remind me. I'll show you a picture of leaf-footed bugs so you know what I'm talking about. Their legs are like, it's in the shape of a leaf. They look like squash bugs, but they are not squash bugs. Are you seeing anything like that?
No, not that I'm aware of. I can't really see the picture, but
Oh, it's a great thing you don't have them. You don't want to have leaf-footed bugs and squash bugs on your southern peas. And so, yeah, squash bugs are also a major problem. Pyrethrum is a product that is used for squash bugs. The conventional growers use a number of pyrethroids. Problem is that there's development of resistance to some of these pyrethroids that have been used over the years. And so it looks like everything we have against the pests, they keep learning to deal with it. Okay, so let's say a few things about the reason why sometimes we have to talk about the biology. I know sometimes it looks like it's a lot of information, but if you understand how these pests, a major pest like this lives, it makes it easier to understand the urgency to treat or not to treat at certain times. Okay, they lay their eggs in the fresh pea through the pod. So they are laying their eggs through the pod. So let me stop right here and make and stress a point. And Leslie, I don't know how I'm doing on time. So if you need to stop me, just let me know. Now,
okay, Frank, let me go ahead and tell you. Probably about 5 more minutes on this. So we want to make sure we save any time, a few minutes at the end.
Okay. So the major issue with cowpea curculio, there are some farmers who say, I love this southern pea variety, and so I love growing it. This is one issue that I want to address. Sometimes, like we were working with Walmart, where we had a group of farmers supplying Walmart with southern peas. Now, Walmart told us, whether you give us, they gave us a list of varieties. They said, we don't care which one of these varieties you give us, we will take it. Well, some farmers were just comfortable with some specific varieties, and so they wanted to keep growing those varieties from year to year. And those varieties didn't actually attract more money from Walmart, which was buying it, than the other varieties. So this is one of the things I want to talk about. There's variety A, there's variety B, and there's variety C. Maybe variety A, the thickness of the pod is thicker than variety B and C. Well, it makes it more difficult for the cowpea curculio to puncture that variety and lay the eggs inside. So this is like a mechanical exclusion, physical exclusion. The plant itself is protecting itself because the pod is thicker. So it's natural protection. So if you have the choice to choose 2 different varieties to grow, and you are in an area that you know you have cowpea curculio and you don't want to move anywhere else, and all you can do, well, it'll be better to plant a variety that has a thicker pod, or the shell or the pod, than other. It gives you some protection. So this is one way you can protect your crops. Any questions on that? Okay, so that's why I need to point out that the curculio lays its egg into the fresh pea through the pod. So the tougher it is to get it through the pod, the better your chances. The larvae and the adults feeding cause damage and all kinds of problems. Yeah, this is 40 to 60% yield loss is typical. It can get worse than that. This is typical. But I've talked to farmers who have percentage yield loss way higher than that. And so it's not a problem that you want to. This PowerPoint will be available online. And like I said, this is from work that Dr. David Riley did. And I have his permission to use these slides that he developed. You have to see the cycle from fall to early spring. This is what is going on. Grafts are emerging from the pods, and you see where they're going. So sometimes you are spraying the plants, and if there's leaf litter, it makes it worse. Adults are emerging about a month later, and then they seek to shelter in some plants like broom sedge. So you have some weed problems. They are going to be making your insect problems way worse. And then when they leave this plant in the winter, your plants get back in there, they go there. And if you have leaf litter and other things like mulch, all kinds of mulch, plastic, they are good for weed control, they are good for soil conservation, other things. If you have cowpea curculio, that becomes a problem, just like the squash bug problem that I was talking about. It makes treatment of the insect difficult because the insect has a location they can go to, and then they don't have direct contact with the insecticide you are spraying, and that causes a problem. Sometimes some people harvest and then they leave plant debris somewhere on the farm. You look at this. These are cowpea curculio in the plant debris. And if you keep this on your farm and you think, okay, I've destroyed this or I've moved them from the field, they are a location. Well, this is just like a nursery or a breeding ground for the cowpea curculio, and you'll be having major infestation that you may not be able to deal with. I've already talked about this, the cowpea weevil, which I also mentioned, and this is what it looks like. I don't want to go too much into that. For the conventional growers, they do foliar treatment. They treat the plants beginning at flowering. There are soil treatments, but the pesticide they were trying to use was a conventional pesticide they were using, and they were trying them for soil treatment. I don't think that product has yet been registered for use for this purpose. And that's for conventional. So I want to stress again, for organic, it's not an option. So you have to do the preventive measures and try not to get in trouble. Now, let me also talk about the conventional growers use pyrethroid, which Dr. Riley talked about, but that's not an option for us. For us, it's going to be pyrethrum, which is the natural version. This is the synthetic version of the pyrethrum that comes from the chrysanthemum plant. And an example is pyganic. So we don't have the option. Now let's talk about organic control for things like the Mexican bean beetle that we saw the picture earlier. We have crop rotation. We have, depending upon the size of your operation, we have hand picking. You also want to maintain a good insect balance in the garden. So you are creating a situation. We have what we call farmscaping. You plant all different kinds of plants that attract a variety of insects onto your field. Instead of just one insect dominating the population, you want to have a variety of insects. So it reduces major problems that you run into. I'll share this with you. I know I've run out of time. There are ways we deal with stinkbugs, which include trap crops. You can plant mustard, millet, buckwheat, sorghum, sunflower, marigolds, lavender, chrysanthemums. There are all kinds of things that you can used as trap crops for stinkbugs. There are physical traps that can be used, and I have that here, and then this PowerPoint will be available. There's neem oil, there's kaolin, there are all kinds of ways you can deal with stinkbugs. Leaf-footed bugs, hand picking, sweep net. There are vacuum equipment that are used to sort of suck them off plants. Well, it depends upon the size of your operation. Let's talk about some of the trap crops for stinkbugs. I mentioned we have sorghum. There's one variety called NK300, sunflower. For stinkbugs, we have crimson clover, vetch, millet, sunflower, okra, field peas, all kinds of things can serve as trap crops for stinkbugs. But if you use trap crops and you don't spray the pests whilst they are on the trap crops, well, when they are done with the trap crop, they will invade your main crop. So you have to make sure that your trap crops do not become a nursery for major pest problems on your farm. I know I rushed through some of these things. If there are questions, I would like to I apologize for having to rush through some of the stuff. But these are major pests of southern peas that we want to pay close attention to. Whilst I'm waiting for questions, I'll go to the picture of the leaf-footed bug so we all know what I was talking about earlier.
I have one question. If you know, normally you don't want to use, you don't want to combine like neem oil or pyganic because you don't want to build resistance. But if you were to use one of them with diatomaceous earth, would that do any good?
Okay. If you say we don't want to use neem oil and pyganic, I want to clarify that point, and then I'll get back to the diatomaceous earth. With IPM, okay, the idea is that you want to come against the enemy, in this case the pest, with several different tools or tactics. You don't want to use right. So there's very little opportunity to build resistance to it. Now let me talk about the neem oil, because there's some confusion in the way we call neem products. Sometimes when you hear neem oil, the term is used differently. Sometimes you look at the label and it says clarified hydrophobic extract of neem. When you see that on the label, it is just the oil. It doesn't have azadirachtin, the active ingredient. And most of these oils, the way they kill the insects, most oils, like some of the horticultural oils, the way they kill the insect is more of a physical action than a chemical action, because the insects breathe through spiracles through their sides and other stuff. And it typically works best for small insects. So when you spray the oil, it covers the insect and prevents it from being able to breathe. So basically what you're doing is suffocating the insect and killing it. If you are dealing with an insect and your idea is to use the active ingredient azadirachtin, and they say it's a neem product, you have to read the label carefully to see whether it has azadirachtin. There are some products that have the oil, they have azadirachtin, and so the product is doing more than one thing. So, so anytime people say neem oil, I want to be very careful, because I know some people also refer to the neem pesticides as just neem oil. Even though they have the oil, they have the azadirachtin. So I want to be careful. If it's just the oil, it doesn't have azadirachtin. So that is the case. There is no issue of resistance in terms of chemical resistance, because this is just physical action blocking it from being able to breathe. So depending upon which type of neem oil we are talking about, that's one clarification I would want to make. Is that helpful?
Oh yeah, very helpful. I wasn't aware of that. Yeah.
Okay. So that's one part of it. So when you go, if it was just the oil functioning, it's no issue about combining or alternating between the oil and pyganic, because the pyganic is working by a sort of physiological, there is a neurotoxin effect and other things. So it's more chemical there, but this is physical, so there's no problem there. Now, if you have, the only time we try to avoid tank mixes or mixing two different organic pesticides is when one of them is going to cause a problem for, let's take it that you are using a microbial pesticide where you have a disease-causing organism that has been formulated into a pesticide to kill an insect. And then you mix that with another organic pesticide where the other pesticide is going to kill the microbes that are supposed to be killing the insect. Then you will be asked not to mix them together. But if you, the more you vary your attack, it's actually great. Unless, of course, the mode of action of one pesticide is similar to the other one. So if you keep using this one, it develops resistance to this, and it may develop resistance to another pesticide that has the same mode of action. Does that help? If you look at you asked about something else. There was a third one.
Diatomaceous earth.
Diatomaceous earth is also working by physical means. It's not a chemical process. All those things
right.
that you have is sort of stripping the insect of cuticle, cutting it so that the insect has a lot of cuts and it will lose a lot of water through dehydration. And,
and on these hard shell guys like Stinkbugs and Curculio, that diatomaceous earth probably wouldn't do any good unless you caught it at a young age.
It's not one of the first products that I'll make. People swear by it. I'm not one of those.
Okay.
Yeah, it does a pretty good job against certain insects. I'll not be going after stinkbugs with, it's used. What I'm saying is that it's not one of the products I'll say you use this, is a magic bullet. It's not a magic bullet for this particular insect by any imagination. Yeah. So because that's also physical action, I don't, the resistance is not going to be a problem based on what you are using, because two of the things you mentioned, we are talking about physical action here, and then the other one has biochemical kind of action. So resistance issues are not going to be a problem with what the things you mentioned.
Okay, good.
Okay, well, we are up on our time right about now. Does anyone else have any last questions? And please remember, if you do have any questions, you're always welcome to get a hold of us anytime by phone or text at 334-641-1640 or organic@tuskegee.edu. Okay. Last chance for questions. Anyone?
Yeah. Could you repeat that organic, what, that website?
Sure. It's organic@tuskegee.edu, and Tuskegee is TUSKEGEE.
Okay. Organic. All right. Good. Okay.
Yeah, shoot us any pics, also any photos of any pest issues or disease issues ever that you're dealing with. We want to see them and get you the help you need as soon as possible.
Okay.
And Dr. Corku, is there anything left for you?
Oh, there's quite a bit.
Well, we're you'll provide your whole PowerPoint, correct?
Yes.
So we'll post that up with the recording here.
Sounds good.
Okay, well, I guess we will call it a wrap for today, and thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you.
And happy growing.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Dr.
Dr. Yes, thank you, Dr. Corku.
Thanks.